Hello, my name is Kate. I collect plants, mostly orchids, but sometimes other plants too. This is a showcase on the tetraspis purple mountain. I got this orchid maybe 2 years ago, and as you can see, it's quite unique. It's not like other supermarket Phalaenopsis in that it's more of a summer bloomer. And you can see that the shape is a little bit different. The petals are a bit more spiky. And another unique feature is that each flower comes out different. You can see it's got, if it focuses, it's got some spotting there in the purple. And it's got alternating white or purple petals. And then you can see with these newer ones that the entire flower is purple, and then this one as well, almost the entire one is purple with a small, almost indigo spot there. Generally, the more the temperature goes up in your environment, the more color comes out. So if you have a very cool, consistent climate, it will flower, especially if it's at least a little bit warm, but it will definitely lean towards the white side. So they'll have majority of the petals as white. But then as it gets warmer, these are the newest ones that come out. As it gets warmer, it will start to produce almost entirely purple flowers. I really like this orchid. I have to say, when I first got it, I was a little bit disappointed. I think the camera picks up a nicer colour than it probably is in real life. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice purple. But whenever you see promotional videos or promotional photos of it, cameras aren't particularly good at picking up the colour of these things. And it's definitely more of a muted purple than you might think. And actually this is a common thing with purple and blue orchids in general. Generally the photos look a lot more like vivid and maybe blue tinted than they actually are in real life. Looking at the viewfinder on this, the color on the screen is actually coming through a little bit warmer than it is. It's more of a cool purple, and it's definitely more of a lavender color rather than a more vivid purple. And at first I was actually quite disappointed because, like I say, the difference between the photos and the orchid itself is yeah, it's a little bit disappointing. But I have to say, this year it's pleasantly surprised me. I didn't think that you could get this many flowers on it at one time. Generally, this is a summer blooming Phalaenopsis, so generally you only get maybe 1 or 2 flowers per spike, and it takes a long time for the plant to build up spikes. But this one actually already has 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. I'm sure there was more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and I think it has 1 on the way, or a few on the way. It has 1 there. So yeah, there's 4 or 5 spikes. And it definitely didn't have that many last year. It only had maybe 2 last year, and it's grown 2 or 3 in just 1 year. But yeah, I'm actually starting to warm up to it for sure. For care, also very pleasantly surprised, to be honest. Because I didn't particularly like it too much last year, I was not neglecting it. As you can see, it's very healthy, but I definitely didn't put it in the best spot, or at least what I thought was the best spot. And I didn't fuss over it. You know, I didn't put it in the best media. I didn't think about if it was getting too much light or not enough light, and maybe didn't fertilize it as much as I should. And I put it basically in my brightest window, the window that I keep all of my cactuses. And in a weird way, this, again, it was like not a method of getting rid of it, but like testing its loyalty. I know that sounds a bit, I know that sounds ridiculous. But you know, if this plant survives, if this plant does well when I am giving it maybe worse conditions than I normally would, it's worth keeping. And that's pretty much what happened. Like, I'm pretty sure the light that I gave it contributed to just how many flowers it has. It's done extremely well in that kind of bright light. Don't get me wrong, I can keep Phalaenopsis in that window at least for a short period of time, but pretty much all of the time, if I do that, they get sun stressed and they bleach and they don't look happy. Maybe later on I'll do a video about my Leodoro, but that one's also receiving the same like punishment, if you if you will, and it's not particularly happy. But you know, this one, it literally took the blaring sun and threw it back at me. Now, I'm not saying that you need to give it a lot of light. I think it would do fine in medium light or even low light, but I'm pretty sure it would affect how many flowers it makes, since this is what happened after giving it arguably too much light. But I think at the very least you don't need to worry. Like, you don't need to worry about whether it's too much light compared to other orchids. I think other orchids are a lot more fussy and would not do well in that situation. So light-wise, maybe give it as much light as you possibly can, but just keep an eye on the leaves. Generally, the burning is more associated with too much temperature. So if the light's beaming through your window and it's actually physically heating the leaf, that's usually when all of the burning happens. But that doesn't mean that the plant doesn't suffer if there is too much light in general, like irrespective of the temperature it produces. And again, I'll show maybe later on the Leodoro, it's really not happy at all. But yeah, as much light as you can, but keep an eye on it. And you'll get some really nice blooms like this. Water-wise, it's again really not that fussy. Right now, I think it's dry. Let me see. Yeah, it's definitely in need of water. You can see that I've got it in inorganic media, so it can get quite dry in there, but I definitely prefer this because I live in a very humid environment, so it's not like I don't want there to be too much moisture retention. But this is perlite. Perlite does hold some moisture. One problem it does have though is it does wick moisture from the roots if you don't water in time. So as soon as the perlite dries out a bit too much, it starts to suck the water from the roots, which is not good. But I'm figuring out ways to manage that, and I'd still prefer to have inorganic media because it's just a lot cleaner of a media. Things don't generally rot. They maybe desiccate, but I think that's better than rotting, in my opinion. Like, rotting can spread to the stem, it can cause all kinds of issues, but just a root drying out every now and then is not the end of the world. For fertilizer, I generally try to fertilize on every water. That definitely wasn't the case last year. As I said, I kind of put it through survival training, if you will, and it's still done absolutely fine. So, you know, in theory, it doesn't need super frequent fertilizing, and it doesn't need maybe the best quality fertilizer if I got away with doing it only occasionally. But you can definitely give it at least a week's solution of fertilizer on every water. I think that's the better way of doing it anyway. You can also use, I think, like, what's it called? The slow release fertilizer. you know, put the granules in the pot and just water it normally. At least that way the orchid gets some fertilization when you forget, or if you don't have time to add fertilizer. The only problem with those though is that they're usually heat activated, so if you're wanting to fertilize your orchid during winter, which is not really a problem for these ones, they don't grow during winter at all really. They don't grow flower spikes, they don't grow leaves, so it's not like they need the fertilization in the winter. But if you do have an orchid that is actively growing in winter, or even just slightly cooler weather, you're going to want to supplement the actual water you're giving, because the slow release ones won't release it in cooler weather. As I said, the potting media is inorganic, and that's purely just because I live in a very humid environment. It's generally a bit cooler. I'd rather my orchids be on the drier side and the area side than have a lot of moisture, like with moss or anything like that. Not that I'm against moss. I do have one orchid in moss, and I think it's really nice. Like it's really convenient to just water it slightly, and the whole pot is equally moist. It's really nice. But I do worry in winter if it's going to be a problem, because you're going to have really wet, moist media for months on end, and then super dry pockets where the bark is, and you're not going to be able to water again until it completely dries out. But then the pockets filled with bark are just completely dry and desiccated. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on it, but yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. At least with this one in winter, yeah, it doesn't dry out for months, which you'd think would be a problem. But because everything is just so slow growing, and there's no like heat to encourage fungus and stuff like that, it doesn't really cause any problems, and it just kind of maintains the health of the orchids without watering for, like I say, months on end. So I'm happy with the pumice at least. And yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like this is a really nice orchid. If you can get your hands on it, I would definitely recommend it. I'm sure the other tetraspises are the same. So the C1 and the C2, probably also very prolific, nice show of flowers, really strong, likes loads of different conditions. I'm sure the other ones are also the same. I don't have the other ones. But yeah, I would highly recommend this. If you're wanting to get some summer blooming Phalaenopsis and you haven't before, I think this is literally the perfect one to start with. It took all of my abuse basically, and yeah, go for it, honestly. You should be able to find it online. So I got this one online. I think it was Orchids and Beyond on eBay. They have a website, if I'm not wrong, so you don't necessarily have to get it on eBay. You can get it on their website directly, and generally it does turn out a bit cheaper. I don't know why, but I definitely do lean towards eBay. There's something about it that's a bit more convenient. I have no idea why. It's just easier to shop around, I guess, and not get caught in buying from just one place. But yeah, highly recommend this. As far as I'm aware, that this was a few years ago that I got this, so it might not be in stock at the moment. But yeah, have a look.